All right, friends, welcome. Hey, welcome to the How Successful Nonprofits Fundraise When Starting and Growing. So, hi, I'm Mary Valloni. For those of you guys that I haven't met, and Tim Needham is my
Hello, hello.
co-host here today. Hi, Tim. Hi,
Hey,
friend.
hey. I
And then
am
we
so excited about this.
I know. I know. We did a training a couple months back, and we really
Yeah.
had a great response and wanted to be able to continue to teach and train. So we know fundraising is a topic that everybody seems to want to know more about when it comes to running their nonprofit.
Well, it's the topic that so like when people talk to me, it's about how to build the organization, which is not nearly as boring or nearly as attractive as the subject matter of how do you actually bring in the money that's going to, build the organization. So I think we're going to have a really, big audience today with a lot of really good questions because everybody in the nonprofit world, if you're running the organization, wants to know how to fundraise better. So this is
Yeah,
going to be a good one.
for sure. Hey, and then you also see a third face on the screen, and this is our wonderful executive assistant for Start and Grow Your Nonprofit, Miss Erin Wells. And so Erin is behind the scenes. She's going to be watching for your questions, navigating on the back end, making sure you guys have links when you need them. So thank you, Erin, for joining us. But I know sometimes people are like, who's this Erin? And so this is Erin. She's got her screen. She's behind the screen. She's bombarded in St. Louis, Missouri, well, south of St. Louis with the cicadas. For those of you
Yep.
who are familiar with the cicada noise, it is quite loud. So,
Yeah.
all right, guys. Well, we have people from all over the world who have joined in. Feel free to continue to post in the chat where you're from, because that gives us a good gauge on understanding too how we can best support you.
Yeah.
So, all right. On that note, are we all ready?
Let's
You're
do it.
ready? Okay, let's do this. Okay. All right. Michigan, North Dakota. Come on, guys. I love it. Okay. So here's what you're going to learn today during our time together. We are going to be talking through the 3 key fundraising strategies successful nonprofits are using right now. Okay. This is right now, 2024. These are the things that are happening at this stage. We're going to be talking about the single fundraising event, or fundraising strategy. One of those 3 that is the most deserving of your attention. So if you're going to just do the minimum amount, we'll give you that single fundraising strategy today. And then we're going to answer some key questions that come up all of the time. These questions are typically, are fundraising events still worth it? Because as you know, fundraising events are very time consuming, and we've also gone through a major pandemic.
Yep.
So we all know that fundraising events have seen their fair share of ups and downs over the last several years. And then another question here is just how do you maintain sustainable income year after year? Because this can be a rat race, right? Like where
Yeah.
you just feel like why does it feel like every January 1st we're having to start over again? And it just feels like it's exhausting. Does this ever end? And there is a way. There is a way
Hmm.
out of this. Okay. Tim is living proof
Yeah.
of it through his organization. We'll tell you about it in a second. But the main thing is that we just want to make sure that you don't ever run out of fundraising contacts, because
Yeah.
that is the killer of every nonprofit fundraising campaign. So, and then this question here, what is the single sales piece that every successful nonprofit needs to raise more funds? We're going to share that with you as well. So, all
Hmm.
right. Well, Tim, who are we? How did you all get here? So uh, I'll go ahead and have you introduce yourself first, and then I'll share a little bit about myself.
Yeah, my name is Tim Needham. I am the executive director and founder, co-founder of Restoration House STL in St. Louis, Missouri. We're an organization that works with youth and young adults between the ages of 18 to 26 who are either homeless or experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness or in a low-income community. We have a drop-in center in South City, St. Louis, where we kind of operate out of. And we have been doing that for the organization launched about 8 years ago. We've been in like research mode and everything all together about 10 years. So many moons ago, when we got the organization off the ground, before we launched, a couple of months before we launched, I talked to somebody one day and I said, "Hey, I have no idea how to fundraise." So, and I knew that this person had some really good contacts because they had raised a lot of money in the past. And I said, "Who do you go to for your fundraising and stuff?" So he, well, I know this lady named Mary Valoni, and you should get connected to her. And so from day one, our organization brought on Mary Valoni as our fundraising coach, and we've been rocking and rolling ever since. We've experienced growth even through the pandemic. We actually grew through the pandemic, and we launched the Success Center right in the middle of it. And so several years ago, me and Mary have been working for many years together, where she was coaching me, and her and I began talking years ago about, maybe we feel like in all this, as we've, because she was launching her business at the same time I was launching Restoration House, we realized there's a lot of people out there who could use coaching on not just how to grow and fundraise, but how do you grow the whole organization? How do you grow it organically and organizationally and structurally, from fundraising to volunteers and everything. And so her and I came up with this idea to start a coaching business called Start and Grow Your Nonprofit. So now what we do is we specialize in helping people who are either starting the nonprofit or are desiring to grow it from where it's at to a whole nother level. So that's not just fundraising, but that's also the entire organization, where we look at everything. So anyways, that's me, and that's a little bit of what we do. And
Yeah.
now
Love it.
I'm going to let you introduce yourself, Mary.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, in the chat, I would love to hear how many of you guys are the Tim of your organization. Like, you're the
Yeah.
executive director, you're the, founder of your organization. Yeah, I am. I am. If you are something else, if you are, the fundraiser, if you're a board member, whatever, use the chat. Tell us that that's your position. But if you're, yeah, the I ams, yep. So that's the thing. A lot
That's
of you
my
guys.
people.
Right. A lot of you guys are the Tims of the organization. Love it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We got an admin in here. We've got, yep. I like the high five, the hand raised. Very good. Cool. Well, thank you guys. I mean, just thank you for taking the time today
Yeah.
to join in on today's conversation. I'm Mary Valoni, and my expertise is on the fundraising side. At a young age, if any of you have read my book, Fundraising Freedom, you may have read a story about me where I talk about how I sold candy bars in kindergarten. And at a very young age, I loved it. I loved the fundraising aspect. I don't know, maybe I loved chocolate, and that was part of it too, which I do.
Sure.
So chocolate and fundraising, perfect combination. Anyway, but that was the thing. I always knew at a young age that I liked sales. I liked
Mm.
entrepreneurship. I liked, helping really good causes bring in the funds that they needed, but I was never really the mission person.
Yeah.
So you guys are the mission people. You see the need, you see the heartbeat of the people that you serve. Tim helps homeless youth, and it's like his heart is like, I cannot sit still without helping them. And it's like he had to come off the sidelines to step in and do something about it.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
all of you guys. Like, you have you are a unique DNA makeup of just an intense amount of heart. And I just am so drawn to that. And I love it. I love helping charities raise money. And the thing is that it's not that I love money. Although that's a good thing, not biblically speaking, but I mean, but more of the fact that it's not the money that I love, it's the relationships that
Mm.
I love. I mean, the relationship that I get to have with Tim, the relationship that I get to have with so many of you guys. There's so many great faces. I mean, Daniel, there's just so many people on this call already that, Tim and I have gotten to serve or work with in some capacity. And that just is Yes, that's what I want to do. Relationships, which if we can teach you a few things today and we can push you to the next level with your organization, that's what we're here for. That's what I'm here for. So for the last 20 years, I know that seems near impossible, but for the last 2 decades, I have really dedicated myself to learning the craft of fundraising, helping charities raise money. And over the last 10 years, I have helped over 1,000 nonprofits raise funds. So if
Yep.
that gives you any idea of the like how much I'm immersed in this topic here today, I mean, I eat, sleep, and breathe this. Like I love understanding people, understanding relationships, but also just the fact of like I'm a constant learner because this topic that we're talking about here today, it changes. It's always changing. Look at, I mean, when I started my fundraising, I was sending out fax, like I was faxing stuff. I was, showing up at the doorstep. I was doing a lot of cold call phone calls. Like we just don't have to do those things anymore. We now have access to the internet and social media. And, Tim and I were talking about how we were like having to track down television, reporters and,
Mhm.
trying to get in the newspaper, trying to get like an ad to say, looking for volunteers, I'm like, literally 20 years ago, I'm like asking for volunteers in newspaper ads, right?
Yep.
Like we do not live in that time anymore. And so that's why I'm talking about 2024 today, because that's what is really important for us to be thinking about as we're moving forward with our organization. So all that to be said is that I can't even tell you how much money I've raised because like I have lost count a long time ago because, obviously everybody has gone their different directions and they're raising those funds. But I started off with Special Olympics, the ALS Association, and the American Cancer Society. In my last few years with the American Cancer Society, I raised over $4 million. In a single fundraising event, I raised $500,000. The first year we came out of the chute. So when you say I'm starting, I'm growing, I started that fundraiser from the ground up. I built it year after year. It was $500,000 net in the first year, second year, 600,000, third year, 700,000. Okay. So I know how to grow these events. I know how to grow your fundraising efforts, but I also know how to start them. So Tim is your go-to guy when it comes to starting the organization, and I am your person for starting and growing that fundraiser. So let's
Yep.
dive into today's topic. Okay.
Let's do
The
it.
one thing that I want to show, like, just if you walk away with nothing here today, I want to make sure that you guys have a resource in your back pocket. Tim and I have a podcast. It's called Start and Grow Your Nonprofit
Yep.
Podcast. Very fitting for what we're here today for. But the main thing is that we talk to people that are just like Tim, that are just like you guys, starting, have grown your organization, and we talk through just the highs and lows of the startup and the growing process. And our guests are fantastic. We know all of our guests personally, the ones that have been on our episode so far. Tim, you probably don't even know this right now because I just looked it up, but we are in the top 10 for nonprofit podcasts as of
Hey.
today. So if you type in nonprofit, you will get our nonprofit podcast here as a resource for you. But there's 15 episodes. We just got started this year, but there's lots of great resources in there for you. So you
And
can just listen as you're traveling and go from there.
I would say
So,
that I'm surprised by that, but I'm not because not, and it's, really actually it's not because of you and me on the podcast. It's because we have just exceptional people telling exceptional stories about how they did everything from fundraising to growing their organization organically. There are people on there who we've interviewed so far who have $100,000 nonprofits. We have folks who have been on and we've interviewed that have $2 million nonprofits. So you're going to see the whole spectrum. So if you're growing your nonprofit and you want to figure out how to get to 2 million, you're going to want to listen. If you're at that starter stage and you're just trying to figure out how do I get 50,000 or 500, it's you're gonna be blessed to hear it too. So I'm not surprised at all, but that's really cool.
very cool. And thanks, Aaron, for posting those links in the chat. So you save those links or, go to your favorite podcast app and just put us on there, when you're traveling and you're moving forward. Absolutely. Adam, I love that. Adam's a student. I love you. All right, let's dive in. Okay, let me tell you real quick. 500 billion billion dollars alone every single year is donated in the US. Okay. I know that some of you guys, we have several that are coming from outside of the area. I just want to show you this in the US right now, just so you can get your arms wrapped around what is happening. We'll use the US as and just kind of our basis for today's conversation, because I know a lot of you guys have donors based in the US. But if you have donors outside of this, here's the thing: humans are humans everywhere. Okay. So we behave in very similar ways across the board. So I just want you to see, though, that $500 billion. Go ahead in the chat and tell me, how much money are you trying to raise? I'm just going to assume it's a lot less than 500 billion, but go ahead and throw your number in there. Like, as far as how much are you raising as an organization, to just get a gauge here. So
Can
here,
we ask
20,000.
that too? If you write that answer on there, if you're one of our current students, so put that on there too. I'm on the START program or the Grow program, and how much are you raising?
Perfect. Okay, we got a couple in the, tens of thousands, 50,000, 200,000, lots of quarter of a millions there, like
Mhm.
that 200,000, 250. Great. My buddy Adam is in there at 875. Love that. 2 million from Charlie, a million from Francine. Great. Lots of them. So great. We're all across the board. Okay, perfect. Okay, so keep them coming. Just so you guys know, this is the breakdown. So this is the most current information that we have access to, right? Like, they're always tracking information from the year before. So the 2023 Giving USA, this is one of the best resources for statistics. They're telling us that 64% of all of that $500 billion is coming from individuals. 21% is coming from foundations, 9% is coming from bequests, which, if you don't know what a bequest is, it's basically just putting this charity into your will. You're making a commitment through a will or trust, and that's 9%. And then 6% is corporate giving. Okay, so remember, just kind of think of these numbers as we go through these three key strategies so that you guys get a good understanding of what's happening. All right. So the three key fundraising strategies successful nonprofits are using in 2024 are: number one, no surprise, these individual giving campaigns. So individual giving campaigns are anything from, oops. Oh, sorry. I'll hit that on just a second. So I want to show one more stat here for you can see. So individual giving, I think a lot of people assume, because this is very common, that a lot of people would assume that older people are more generous than younger people. And so if you have a donor base of younger millennials, Gen Xers, this is 2023 information. This is not decades ago, like I was talking about with the fax machine. Okay. So 2023, you see the blue-green line, and then you've got the 2012 stats, which is that neon green. And so back in 2012, 11 years ago, there was a significant jump in seniors and boomers that were giving majority of the money. But now we're actually seeing a leveling across the board, where we're seeing giving across everything. And when younger people are told about this, they often say that they give generously because they're trying to right the wrongs of the older generations. So I don't know what that says, but they're very generous. But you can also see the percentages there: 54% and 56%. That's basically saying like 1 in every 2 people are giving. So
Yeah.
like the stats there, 56, 54%, it's pretty leveled out across the board, that half of, most people, I mean, when you really think about it, 1 out of every 2, think about all the poor people who are homeless, like there's a lot of people that just don't have the means to give, but half of them do, and they
Yeah.
are. So, and then this stat, this was interesting. It came from the same study, True Sense Marketing's annual donor graphics study. But they showed here on the left, if the average annual giving under $10,000 per by generation, you can see that it's actually pretty leveled out. Gen Zs, I mean, 18 to 25, we all can understand why they're not giving as much as a senior. But when you look at the households based on how much money they have, you can see, obviously, the more money somebody has, the more they can give. The less money they
Yeah.
have, the less they give. Okay. So I just don't want you to prejudge an individual on what their capacity is to give, because generosity, it doesn't matter what age they are. We all have that generosity gene or bug or whatever in us. And so like when you're inviting people to give, you should target the audience that you want involved in your organization.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
shouldn't, you shouldn't just be like, we're just going to talk to old people. Well, you know what? The old people die off. Okay. And then you're going to need the younger people. So
Well,
it's
and
important.
to that point too, Mary, like, so you don't want to just necessarily, you want it to be people who are passionate about what you do, because you can be around a bunch of rich people too, and they may not be the right fit for you as well. So it's not just about hanging around people with a lot of wealth. It's about people who are in line, finding the people who are in line with what you're trying to do.
Absolutely. So when it comes to individual campaigns, these are the three areas that successful nonprofits are spending their time in. Okay. Major gifts. A lot of people are like, it's a fancy word. For those of you who are raising $1 million, $2 million, like major gifts is like, whatever, we do that in our sleep, right? Like that's probably very common language. But for those of you who are new, major gifts just means it's a big gift for you. So some organizations, $1,000 is a major gift for them. For other organizations, that $1 million organization, a major gift might be $10,000 or 25,000, 50,000, 100,000, so you have to really look at your organization and just be like, okay, what's a big gift for us? Tim,
Yeah.
what's a big gift for Restoration House
At
for
this
you?
point, it'd be $100,000 donation would be big. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that would be like what I would term as a supersized gift.
Yeah.
But I would say, just because I've done work with you, that a lot of your major gifts are coming in at $10,000. You guys
Yeah.
just got a $10,000 gift at your recent fundraiser. And,
Yep.
Aaron works with you as well in that area. And you guys were like, so the way I know
Well,
it's a
so
major gift is when I see the eyes light up and they're like, wow, that was a really good gift.
yeah, so it is interesting because to that point, what you just said, I was probably the only one who didn't like, just blow up with excitement. All the rest of my team, because normally I'm the one who like, gets all those funds and it comes in, but they were dealing with it this time, and they were coming over to me and their eyeballs were the size of like basketballs. Like, can you believe this? And I look at them, I'm like, yes, I can believe that. Yeah, of course. Well, look at us.
Yeah.
We're awesome.
Right.
And you and I had talked about that many times in the podcast and like coaching and stuff for the years. It's just that mentality that you have. Like if you are shocked by something, that's not a bad thing, but it's just, it speaks to the expectations that you have of who you are as the organization. Like, of course you're worth $10,000. Of course you're worth $50,000. Of course you're worth $100,000. Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, go ahead, use the chat as well and type in what is a big gift for you? Like when, I would assume that you've possibly already gotten it, or you're on the hunt, that it's like, I'm looking for somebody to get $5. Ed, I love the honesty. Good work, buddy. So, but more like probably what Adina and Becky are saying here, 10, 5,000. Yeah. How much? I love that we can all connect on the same level. I love it. Just starting.
Hey,
Right.
somebody just received a $25,000 gift. That's awesome.
Jim. Oh, he's a student of ours. Good job, Jim. Good work. He's in our Grow program. That's great. Love it. Great. Okay. So 2000, King Kong, super, I like it. $10,000 there. Eric, that's okay. $10,000, but never received it. That's okay.
Yep.
Abel's at 2000, and Adam, yep, 10,000. 10,000 tends to be a pretty good number, like as you're getting, like for the $250,000 budgets, those are the ones that you're probably going to see 10 in that area. But obviously anything out of the norm, you're going to pay attention to. So there is a strategy with this. The whole thing is with these individual donors is that you are paying attention to these individuals. We are moving them through the process. We're inviting them, we're engaging them, and we're actually thinking about what this means. So when I see Francine say $25,000, I have to encourage you guys to really think of, how do we get more people in at that level?
Yeah.
How do we engage somebody to where they would be a $25,000 donor, or they'd be a 10,000 or 5,000 or a $5, whatever the number is, right? So you can start to see that it's like, we've got to take them through a journey. And so major gifts are basically like, hey, this is a great thing for us to get there eventually, maybe for that capital campaign, maybe for that year-end ask that you're going to make. But I just want you to see that these are the three when it comes to individuals that we are seeing successful nonprofits focusing in on. Annual and monthly giving is basically, hey, we've got consistent donors. They're
Yeah.
giving every year, they're giving every month. So there's just like, we're getting into this rhythm. And this is where I was talking about before that it's like, okay, how do we get that consistent donor so that we have sustainability year after year? It's in these
Yeah.
areas of just annual gifts, monthly gifts. We're seeing that happen. So, and then the third part about this one is just really that online and digital fundraising. We are seeing a huge uptick in this, right? Because people are communicating on social media, right? Like
Yeah.
when I mentioned to you, Tim, about like, oh, we used to try and track down, the newspaper and the TV station. That was the old way of marketing. The new way of marketing is emails, it's
Sure.
social media, it's peer-to-peer fundraising. So I just want you to see here that there's a lot of ways that you can do the individual campaigns, but it really all falls under that one single bucket.
And
Okay.
there's if you guys listen to our podcast, there's a guy on there. I think he was the first one that we interviewed. His name was Bob Sturgis. And man, I'm telling you what, this dude knows how to kill it when it comes to online social media and email like fundraising. He is one of the best that I've seen at the level that I'm at and we're at. So I know, like in St. Louis, we just had a Give STL Day. So it's where people all over St. Louis are encouraged to give. It's an online marketing program. But what he does is he spends months leading up to the event finding people who will be willing to be a matching donor for every dollar that they raise on Give STL Day. Or what's the other one in November?
Yeah. Giving Tuesday.
Giving
Yep.
Tuesday. So for both of those, he spends months finding people who will be matches for the money that they raise that day. And last I looked, a couple of weeks ago, I believe he raised with Give STL Day, he raised like over $60,000 in one day through social media and email. Just fantastic. And he'll do that again for Giving Tuesday.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and just so you guys know, I mean, like the reason why you guys are here today is because of social media. Like it's because of, well, not just social media, but I mean, email marketing. Like most of you got an email from me or Tim, or, saw something on social media about that. That was like the primary way we told people about this training today. So you can see where it's like, hey, to get people interested or to find out who cares about a certain topic, you definitely can utilize those avenues to make it happen. So we'll talk a little bit more about this in just a second, but that's number one, is the individual giving campaigns. Okay. And then number two is the corporate partnerships and sponsorships. Now, at the beginning here, I gave you a stat on this. Corporate partnerships and sponsorships is only 6%. Okay. So when you think about all the overall giving that's happening, there's only 6% of all the money that's coming in is coming in through corporate partnerships. So I'm going to tell you this strategy, but I'm also going to let you know that this is a very small piece of the pie. Okay. So I just want to encourage you to don't get overwhelmed by this, especially if you're somebody who doesn't raise money with corporate support. But some of you are not capitalizing on this. Okay. So if you are a non-religious 501c3, that doesn't mean that you're not a faith-based person or that you don't have that, person, like the drive for your organization. If you are a non-religious 501c3, you have opportunities in this corporate space to be generating income for your organization at a pace that like you just are leaving money sitting on the table. Okay. Tim is like by all sense of the terms, is a religious organization, but he is a 501c3 non-religious organization. So
Right.
he falls under this category and he's tapped into these levels. Okay. So there's really just three that fall under this. It's event sponsorships, it's corporate giving programs, and it's cause-related marketing. Now, these are 50-cent words. Okay. So if you're like, what in the world does all of this mean? Okay. I'm going to make it so simple for you because you've seen it. You're surrounded by it. When you turn on the television and you see these things going on, this is what you're seeing. Event sponsorship, that golf tournament sponsored by, and it's got somebody's name on it or it's got whatever, that is an event sponsorship. That is like, hey, we're raising money for this great charity and this brand has attached their name onto this. They gave them a bunch of money so that they can get all the branding and marketing and align themselves with a great cause.
Yeah,
So, Tim, you guys do sponsorships
that's
for
right.
your events and you invite like other corporate giving, that happens. And why do you think that people do that? Why do you think companies have aligned themselves with you and your organization?
For us, it's because we have positioned ourselves to be in with, like what I mentioned before, who people who are passionate about what we do. Like for example, we got a donation. Believe it was just past week from a hotel chain. I'll leave the name of it out, but from a national hotel chain here that's based out of St. Louis, and it makes perfect sense because they're about housing, they're about keeping a roof over people's head. And so when they hear about an organization like ours, and if we present to them or have the opportunity to present it to them, it makes sense because they are that's something that they can communicate, like, look, we're helping to do this. Yes, we're a for-profit business, but we are giving to organizations who are passionate about helping people get off the streets and get housed and stuff like that. So but the other thing is, it's just about how we have connected and also positioned ourselves to be in the same room as those people who we think are going to be passionate about what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I think sometimes people get real like, uncomfortable or like, oh my gosh, if I go and talk to this big company, why would they ever consider us? And
Yeah,
you got to put all those emotions off to the side and you have to say, what do they care about? What do we care about?
yeah,
Are we a good fit? So like you
yeah,
said, this hotel chain and we're getting kids off the streets,
yeah.
housing. They care about housing. We care about
We care about
housing.
housing. Yeah,
We're a good fit,
yeah,
right? When I worked for the American Cancer Study, who cares about fighting cancer? A ton of organizations care about
hmm,
it. That's why there are so many sponsors aligned. And
sure.
there's one out of every two men are going to get diagnosed with cancer. One out of every three women are going to be diagnosed. So every company has a mother, a sister, a brother, a father. Like, you know what I mean? Like they all care because it's a disease. It's something that's hitting home. For all of you guys, I know we do have quite a few faith-based organizations that are in attendance here, and it's the same thing. Who cares about the same things you care about? When I talk about event
Sure.
sponsorships, you might actually not look at the corporate side, corporate. You might be looking at church, entities and look at them in kind of this corporate perspective because who cares about the people that you care about? Well, they do. I work a lot with college ministries. Well, every church has a youth ministry. And if the youth, fall off and they don't have the college ministry, then all of their investment for all those years is just thrown to the wayside.
Yeah.
So who's going to care about college ministry? Well, they are, right? So just be thinking about what are the alignments that we have with these organizations and figuring out a way for them to sponsor, align their name with yours and be able to basically say nice things about them and they say nice things about you and it makes for a great collaboration.
Yeah.
So, all right, the corporate giving program, this is one where I'm like there is a lot you can just Google. Okay, you can just Google this. I could share this list with you as well, but you just Google who has matching gifts programs.
Hmm.
Which companies offer matching gifts? This you will see a list of names like you know Chase card services, MasterCard, like all those guys, Bank of America, all these corporate kinds of companies, they all have matching gifts programs,
Hmm.
which means if they write a donation, if they give $100 to Tim's organization, they will match $100. So now
Hmm.
Tim just got $200, right? So it's money that's just like sitting there from these companies. So if you have in your area, if you have a company that's like, hey, we've got a headquarters for blah, 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 whatever that is, find out, do they have a matching gifts or a corporate giving program and find out. So for me, I had Chase Card Services was one that was based in Springfield, Missouri. They had a location there. They paid, get this, okay, they paid their people to volunteer their time with me. Okay. So every hour that I could put their people to work, they would pay me for that hour of their service. You better believe
Wow.
I found all sorts of things for these people to do for me. Okay. So I mean, it's like you just got to do a little bit of research and just start looking to be like, who's in our area? What kinds of people? What kind of giving program do they have? And just do a little digging, right?
Yeah.
Have a conversation with their marketing director. Find out, hey, does our organization align with what you're doing? And just you start getting some other opportunities for giving. So
Yeah.
that one is as simple as Google the names and just find out who is in your area that's doing this. But just remember that a lot of times these corporate giving programs do not give to religious organizations. So I just want to make that clear. Like an Apple, for instance, Apple has a corporate giving program. They do not give to religious organizations because if you tithe to your church and you give 10% of your money to your church, they don't want to give 10%. And by the way, religious organizations make up 26% of all giving. So that's why a lot of times they push the religious organizations off to the side because that's a lot of money that's
Mhm.
sitting in those religious organizations as is. So it's not good or bad. And just remember that there's just lots of opportunities for religious organizations as well. This just
Yeah.
happens to be one for those secular organizations.
And I would say, to your point where you're talking about how like, this such a small percentage of overall giving was in the corporate and stuff is that's a long game. When
Yeah.
you're talking about corporate going, if you have never went after corporate support, you are in a long game for that one. So that don't be surprised if that takes a long time to, or grow, because it's really about like it's about making connections with people. That's how you grow your corporate support, is somebody that who knows somebody who runs this company or this organization, or you do an event where it's going to be worthy of gaining corporate support, that they're going to become a donor or a sponsor for it. But that stuff takes time. So just know that's a long game type
Sure.
of approach.
But also for those of you, I know when I talk about religious, non-religious, like I mentioned, I just have a lot of people who are in both sides of this. Just know that there is money sitting there in this
Yeah.
corporate sector for
Yeah.
you, no matter what whatever your 501(c)(3), 50, all the different numbers that are on the list, right?
Yeah.
There's money sitting there that could be given to your organization, and you're just, like Tim said, a connection away. Okay, I'm going to hit on this cause-related marketing one real quick because some of you are going to be like, nah, not us. But for those of you that are, if you have seen a pink ribbon on anything, this is cause-related marketing. Okay, this is when one organization aligns with a charity and they brand their logo on top of something else. So if you've seen like a Tony Robbins and Feed America, or any of those celebrities, like he puts Feed America on everything because that's his charity of choice. He's basically done a cause-related marketing campaign with it. Anytime he sells a book, oh, that's a meal for Feed America, right? So it's just like everything that he's selling, he's sending money that way. A lot of organizations will say, hey, we'll do that, promotion, and 10 cents on every dollar is going to go towards our charity of choice. That's cause-related marketing. And so I think we sometimes miss this because we're like, we just didn't ask. We didn't think about it. So if you are currently aligning with a business who has a product or has a service, take for instance, like a car company. We had Chevy as a corporate sponsor for the American Cancer Society. They donated $1,000, or it was depending on how expensive the car was. But for every car, they gave $1,000 to the American Cancer Society that they
Hmm.
sold during a certain window of time. I mean, that $1,000 added up, and eventually they just did $1 million corporate sponsorship. But now we're talking about, this is a very large organization, but you can see like the sponsorship opportunities can go in a lot of different directions. So anyways, I
Yeah.
don't want to keep on that, but Adam, thank you for sharing that he's done that with a coffee company. And that is like a very easy win. Like that coffee, hey, we sell X number of coffee, and maybe they have a special cup that's for you. And if somebody buys that cup, then a certain percentage goes to your charity. Like there's ways to do this. I got ideas for days. Don't get me started on it. Okay. So let's keep moving. Let's keep moving along. Okay. So like the single sales piece at the beginning of our conversation, I told you guys that there is one sales piece that you guys need. Every single successful nonprofit needs to raise more money. This is something that I teach inside of my book, Fundraising Freedom. It's something that I teach for all of you guys who are students of mine in Fully Funded or in Start and Grow Your Nonprofit. I am a huge proponent of having a case for support. Okay. So let me
Mhm.
just start off with this. This is a menu for McDonald's. Can we all agree? Like we know, like this is McDonald's menu. All right. We genuinely know when we pull up to the drive-through at McDonald's for wherever you guys are at in the world, you have a general idea. I know you can see their little dollar menu on the side up in the upper right-hand corner. They have clearly lost a lot of their items off the dollar menu. But back in the day, it was like, oh, I could get a burger for $1. I could get fries for $1, whatever. You know what they're selling, right? We all
Mhm.
know what McDonald's is selling. Okay. This is the menu for Olive Garden. For those of you who are familiar with Olive Garden, it's a pasta, Italian, makeshift kind of restaurant, right? But the prices are higher.
Mhm.
You're talking about, and I know this was actually on the news today, talking about how fast food restaurants are charging way too much. So I'm not going to go into that, but we at least have an idea whenever we pull up to any restaurant, when you sit down with your spouse or someone, and you're like, hey, where do you want to go out to dinner tonight? Like, do we want pasta? Do we want burgers? Do we want fries? Do we want fast food?
Yeah.
And you kind of go through your mind on, well, what do I want? The same thing is happening with our donors and your charity. The donor is thinking through their mind, who do we want to be aligned with?
Yeah.
And if
Yep.
you don't have a menu, if you don't have a document that says what we're selling, they don't know what to buy from you. So I would say this is the single, this is the thing that successful nonprofits are doing. They put everything in writing.
Yeah.
Okay. If you Google and you go on any very successful nonprofit's website, I can guarantee you can find whatever information you are looking for. Is
Yeah.
it their annual report? Is it the donations? Can I make a donation? What does my donation do? What kind of difference am I making in the world? Like they have that information readily available. And what I'm telling you
Mhm.
is, I just want you to have one single document that allows your donors to get an understanding of, why should I give to you? How
Yep.
do I give to you? What should I give to you? I mean, it's really just the who, what, where, when, why, and how of
Yep.
your organization. So if you do not have a case for support, this is the terminology that majority of the nonprofit sector uses, is they call it a case document. I personally call it the
Mhm.
8-pager because I just want you to do it in 8 sheets of paper. Okay.
Mhm.
So I want you to get all of your ideas down in 8 sheets. If you do have a copy of my book, I literally tell you cover, page 1, page
Mhm.
2, letter, so it's like I tell you exactly what to do. But Tim has been so gracious to let us look at his menu from
Yeah.
this was from years
Many
past.
years ago. Yep.
Yeah. So, oh, yeah, there we go. So every successful nonprofit needs a menu. Okay. So here's Tim's
Yeah.
campaign that he did. Okay. Number 1, what do you guys notice? Just from the top of your, like, what do you notice on this document? Logo. Yes.
It's
Thank you.
pretty.
I bet,
Yeah.
Tim, you probably spent a little time on that logo.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh yeah.
Okay. We don't need to go
Well,
into the details, but we know you went through a lot.
oh yeah.
But, and here we have the brand, the campaign name.
Yep.
Yes, time frame is clear.
Yep.
Uh, you know, exactly. The color, can you tell just from that bright color? I love that, Tim, you're actually wearing a similar color today. So, but just the cleanliness of it, right? Like it's
Yeah.
just very clear what this is.
The colors, not surprisingly, they go with our branding too. So when you see other restoration house type of brandings and colors, you see black and white in the logo, but the only other color that you typically see with us is yellow. We made a conscious decision when we started the organization to go with a lot of, yellowish type of colors. So it's not by
Which
accident.
Yeah, and there is like an emotion tied to colors. Like you can look at a graphic that has all the emotions. We actually have access to it in our program, but the color yellow is hope.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's, I mean, it bright, it gives you that sense of hope, which is very fitting for Restoration House. You're giving hope to youth on the
Yep.
streets that there is another option. So colors matter.
Yep.
Okay, so let's dive in real quick. I don't want to go through a ton of details on this because we just do not have the time. And this is
Yeah.
something that Tim and I do coach through. So,
Yep.
and are willing to help you guys. We'll tell you more about that at the end here. But you can see on the left, Tim's got a letter from him. It's a great picture of him and his beautiful family from several years ago. They are so grown now. And then on the right, it's the mission, the
Yeah.
vision of the organization, the history,
It's the
a few of,
testimonials. Yeah.
yeah, from the people that you serve. It's giving a really, and you can even see, like, insert Kate Powell quote here. I clearly had it before it was finalized. Yes, I have a husband for a graphic designer, so he was working on it here. That's how I have access to this. But anyways, and then we dive into, this is the menu.
Yeah.
So on the left, you can see like there's 5 available at $7,500. There's 10 available at $5,000. There's 15 available of the partner level at $2,500. And then what does that give you? This, you can see the corporate connection on that, the logo, the access to our immersion project, the whole thing here. And it's clear at the top, it's 30 people,
Yep.
60 lives impacted,
Yep.
and we're doing it in a
In
90-day
days.
giving period.
Yep.
Yeah. And then the last page here is, just this additional opportunities. Here's some ways that you can give to us. You can host a fundraiser for us, like we just talked about, like that
Yep.
peer-to-peer fundraising, the immersion project. You can join us in this. You can donate a product or a service. But what I want you to see in this is that Tim pulled the stuff out of his head and said, I sure would like it if somebody would do this for me.
Yep.
Oh, it would be nice if somebody else would host a fundraiser for us. And so it's not by chance that those things are actually happening for you,
Sure.
right,
Yeah.
Tim? Products and services,
Yeah.
other fundraisers, all that.
For sure. And that took time too. Like what I mentioned, that's what I try to communicate to people all the time. This stuff takes time. And even with a program like this, what I liked about it was when I came up with it, it was something that was easily like replicable. So I didn't, the 30, 60, 90 part I came up with, but I adapted it from something. I can't remember what it was exactly that I adapted it from, but it was, it was that 50, 50, 50, 30, 69, something that was just, catchy and like easy to say and roll off the tongue. And so, I thought, okay, with 30 individuals or to 30 donors to impact 60 lives in 90 days, that gives me the drive. The 90 days, like that's a ambitious goal, so it gives me something to drive for and really push for hard and fast. But the 60 is what the people who are going to be giving, that's what they want to know. How many people can this potentially impact if the program goes well? Well, you can literally potentially impact and change 60 people's lives if you give to this. And all we're looking for is we're only looking for 30 of you, 30 people who are like you, just 30. And we want you to be one of those few 30 people who are going to help us impact 60 lives in 3 months.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing here that I love about what he did here is he did a monthly amount underneath it. So you can see 2,500 or 210 a month, 500 or 5,000 or 420. And then you've got the 625, I think is what it says there. Yeah. And, but it gives somebody who's like, I can't do $2,500, but I could do $25 a month.
That's right.
Or I could do $50 a month. Would that be okay? And of course, Tim's going to be like, yes, that's okay. Like,
right.
Find your place in this. It's not meant to be like, well, I can't do 25, so therefore I'm out. Like, you're giving options to let people know like that there's a place for you in everything that we're doing.
Yeah. So just, in that monthly, what you're doing is you're basically saying, okay, if that person can't give a $5,000 check right now, I don't know what the math is off the top of my head, but if you take 12 months and you divide it by 5,000, or 5,000 divided by 12, that's how they can get to that same number too. So
Well,
calculate
that's
the
your
entire annual
420.
giving month. Yeah.
Exactly. 420 or, $500 a month, which would be 6,000 for the year. So yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I mean, the nice thing is that, and then this is the final page, which is the testimonials and then where the money goes, like how we're going to spend the money. So he makes it very clear about the need is $125,000 here in this lower right-hand corner. And it knocks down like, okay, here we already have people who are on board.
Yeah.
It's just important to give people the gift of going second, which just means like you don't have to be the first one to say yes. Other people have already said yes.
That's right.
And we can go
Yeah.
from there. So, and this how do our young people become homeless? Tim did his a little bit different where he grabbed the testimonials, put them on page 2 or page 3. And he did this, how do our young people become homeless? And this page is the page that actually impacted me the most because I think that there's a lot of confusion around homelessness, right? And so he gave a very clear description of 3 stories. Jessica left home when she was 15 to escape abuse after her sole source of support, her brother, left to join the Air Force. She didn't have money for rent, so she slept on friends' couches in the beginning. Then she started sleeping in laundromats or the public library and
Yeah.
staying awake all night on the streets to try to stay safe. That's how she got on the street.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like the stories are what are going to connect. So I don't want to spend a ton of time on this here because we still got one more to go. But I just want you to get an idea is that if you don't have a menu, if you don't have a case for support, this is something that I would highly recommend that you do. And then I'm going to whiz through this third one because we have a whole podcast episode on this, episode
Yep.
10 with Joy, who is a Joy Maxwell. We do a full conversation with her about how to get grant ready. But I mentioned to you earlier that 21% of all of that $500 billion that's coming in, it's coming in through grants and foundations. So as a startup or as a young growing nonprofit, you do not have to have it all figured out. And Joy really goes into detail on that to give you guys a gauge on like, okay, how do I get grant ready? She gives you the 6 things to do so that you can be grant ready for your organization. So I'm going to refer over to her, the expert in that. She is a consultant in the grant writing space.
She's marvelous.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But the few things that you can do when it comes to grant writing is just do your research, start looking at who's offering donations through their grants. A grant is literally like a term paper. Like this is what I think about. I'm like, when I was in high school and I had to write a paper about something, or I was in college and they're like, yeah, you got to write this term paper. That's what I think about when it comes to grants. Some people are so good at it, like Joy. Other people, it's not their jam. So if
Yeah.
you were like, I don't like sitting at a computer writing this up, like grants may not be the thing that is going to be your focus, but it's something that I want to put on your radar because of that 21% giving. And then just, making sure that you start identifying that and also starting to build relationships with grant makers.
Yeah.
So if you are at an event, you're networking, you're connecting with people, whatever, and you come across somebody who actually has a trust or a foundation, you just want to put that on your radar and just make sure that you are building relationships with them so that when the time comes, you're ready to put your name in the hat for a grant.
Yeah.
So, all right.
There's one other episode too. We with the episode with Stephanie Soljak. She talks about grant writing too. So if you're interested in that, check out the podcast episode with Stephanie and Joy.
Perfect. Okay, cool. So, all right. So these 3 key strategies, I told you I was going to give them to you. So individual giving campaigns, the corporate partnerships and sponsorships. And then the third is that grant writing and foundation funding. But the one thing, well, okay, let's do one thing. The key to these three as a total is the fact that you need to diversify your income.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is how nonprofits fall apart, is that they don't diversify their income. They jump on the bandwagon on one thing, they go all in on that one thing, and then the one thing dies. Okay.
Yep.
A pandemic hits. Your largest donor dies. I don't know, like your largest donor loses their job, and all of a sudden now all that money is gone. So diversifying your income, it doesn't matter if you're running a business, if you're running a nonprofit, the best way to create sustainability and long-term success is to diversify by your income.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And
Can
now
I
my
can I
single,
say,
go
can
ahead.
I say one thing to that, Mary? So
Yes.
you talked to me about this early on when we were a young nonprofit, and what I think a lot of people are very tempted to think about, particularly in like the religious, like the missionary type of like world, is we're very fixated on monthly income. And we think, and the reason why is because we think sustainability, like, well, if I know what's coming in every month, then I know how to budget, and I know what to expect. And there's nothing that's good, that's accurate thinking. But monthly support is, you're definitely in a long game with that one, because it's going to take a lot longer to build up a lot of money through monthly support. So if
Yeah.
you just focus on that one, and that's where I see a lot of people spend their time, including myself. I was that same person. Mary, you had to like hammer me for years. Tim, you know, like monthly support is great, but why not go after a $20,000 donor?
Yeah.
One time $20,000 donor. Then you don't have to think about like finding $20,000 worth of monthly supporters. So definitely monthly support is great, but it is just one singular realm of revenue for your organization. You must diversify beyond that. Otherwise, you'll do exactly what Mary said, is like you'll just be fighting forever at monthly support. But if you just focus on just one-time checks and one-time donors, and then that donor doesn't show up that year, that's going to hurt. So
Yeah.
you
Well,
must diversify.
and the same thing goes for corporate giving. I mean, if you put all your eggs into corporate giving and then the company goes upside down, like, I mean, you do have to just make sure that you leave room for just things to happen. This
Yeah.
is why I don't want to get into investments, but this is, you're asking somebody to make an investment in your organization, and think about mutual funds. Okay. Mutual funds, they're buying into a ton of stuff. And then over time, it's growing at sometimes it's high, sometimes it's low. But
Yeah.
for the most part, you're steady. And that's what your donors are looking for. Are you going to be here for a long time? And if we invest in you, are we going to see growth? And that's
Yeah,
what you're looking at. So,
for
um,
sure.
yeah, what monthly support? Adam, you are a funny character. Okay. So anyways, okay, you have been waiting. Okay, you've been waiting. The anticipation. Okay, the single fundraising strategy that deserves the majority of your focus. So if you do anything, okay, anything from today's conversation,
Let's hear it.
besides
What is
listening
it?
to our podcast and all the other good stuff that we shared, is that I want you to see that the one strategy is, and let's go back to this. You saw my stats on all of
Yeah.
this. 64% individuals, 21% foundations, 9% bequests, and 6% corporate giving. Tell me what 100% of all of this money, some human is behind all those donations. So 100% of all the donations come through individual relationships.
Yeah.
Ask. Thank you, Amy. Like, yes, as individuals, like relationships. And Tim and I were talking about this, and I was like, from the age, like from Adam and Eve, I don't know, from the very beginning, right? The relationships is what this is all about. We didn't
Yeah.
used to exchange cash. We might have exchanged cows, or we exchanged goods and products. And it was like, I have something of value. You have something of value. I'm going to exchange this for this. That's what fundraising, and that's what you guys are doing is all about. I
Yeah.
have money. Tim has the solution to end
Yeah.
youth homelessness. I have money. I can give it to him. He can do that, and we both win.
Right.
So it's not like you're trying to take money from someone who doesn't want to give the money away. They want to give the money away. They just want to know that you're the right answer to their solution. Like, you're the
Yeah.
solution to their problem.
They want to know
So,
that you're going to have an impact. Yep.
amen. Yes.
Yep.
That, and that you're going to be here. So I did see a little bit earlier here, Rory, you, okay, wait, let me go back. Yeah, it was Rory. Okay. You had said that it's like, you're difficult because you're just getting, it's difficult because you're just getting started. And for
Yeah.
those of you who have 0 donations, or you may have just gotten a few, like, hey, my mom gave me $100 and said, this is a good idea, or grandma, and it's like, we're just trying to get off the ground and going. people are they will follow through and they will buy into a promise. They
Yes,
will buy into the possibility. And the thing is that they're ultimately in the beginning buying into you,
that's
the
correct.
leader of the organization. Tim, how many people invested in Tim Needham when he first got started?
Every single one of them.
Everyone.
Because like you said, I couldn't base the ask off of what we were doing or what we've done. It had to be on the promise of what we were going to do, which is why that case document is comes in so much more critically, because people want to see, maybe, yeah, maybe you don't have on that section that where you can put, like, the impact that you've had, but you can definitely put where that money's going to go to, and how it's going to be an impact. So yes, at the very get-go, when you first get started, it's all about the promise of what you are saying that you're going to do. And the real big part of that is when you're getting going, when you say you're going to do something, you darn well better do it.
Or give a
Because
reason.
right,
Or give a
because
really good reason why
yeah,
not.
because if it doesn't happen, what you're hoping, especially with one-time donors, is what you're hoping is that you can go back to them the next year. And if you can, by that point, by that second year, if you can show that you have had an impact with the money that they gave and you have kept those promises, they'll probably give even more the next year.
Mhm. For sure. And those initial donations are really like a test for you to be like, what are you going to do with this?
It's a it's a
How are
litmus
you going to
test.
communicate with me about what you did with that money? How are
Yep.
you going to make it, and they're not expecting you to transform a life with $100. They're expecting to just say, hey, we are taking steps to move forward. So, all right. Well, we are at the top of the hour, and I know that you guys have uh, additional questions. I want to hit on these few questions, and I also want to give you guys an opportunity to work with Tim and I if you guys are interested, so that hey, I'm out here flailing around trying to figure out what I'm doing. How can I get help? So I'll make sure that we share that with you as well. But here's just a few questions that come up. So, are fundraising events still worth it? Based on today's conversation, I hope that you guys get the response that yes, they are
Mhm.
still worth it, because the reason why yes is because they still connect us with people. They
Yeah.
still connect us with other humans. Okay. So events will always be a part of your fundraising story. They do not have to be big galas. They don't have to be golf tournaments. They don't have to be 5K runs. Fundraising events, for those of you who are in the faith-based, circle, Easter, Christmas, those are events. Every
Hmm.
single Sunday when people show up, those are events, right? They're gathering of people. You're bringing people together for an event for a common purpose. So events are naturally going to be a part of your journey and of your fundraising calendar. So you don't have to have these big scale fundraising events where you're like, oh, 5,000 here, 10,000 there, 5,000 there, 10, it's like that. I'm going to encourage you to stop that right now because that's how you get yourself burnt out, is by doing event after event after event.
Yeah.
But strategically choose events, choose gatherings of people to where it's, hey, we're raising awareness. We're inviting them to hear more about them. This is an event. Tim and I have created an event with this training here today to invite hundreds of people to come together and say, hey, we have the answers
That's right.
to a lot of the problems that you guys are dealing with when it comes to raising support. And we want to help you. The same thing is happening with you guys. You got to create an environment to invite people who want to solve whatever problem you guys are solving and invite them into that.
Wait until you find the right people to pull that off too. That's what as I would say. You mentioned we're doing this webinar right now. We don't do these once a month. We don't do these once a week. We do these like 2-3 times a
Order.
year
Yeah.
most. you know um so even like we know what our bandwidth is, and
Mhm.
you got to know what your bandwidth is with your own organization. You got to know who you have, what you have the capacity to do. So yeah, you mentioned earlier, Mary, you did a $500,000 charity event. Well, you didn't do that on your own.
No.
You did that with a whole team of people who
Yes.
actually made that happen. And so for you, because you were at a larger organization, 500,000 was doable, and you had a base of volunteers. Well, maybe you don't have that. Maybe just have a few people. Wait until you have that person who's really passionate about doing a fundraising event for you. The very first one that we did years ago with Restoration House, it wasn't an event that I came up with. It was an event that one of my volunteers said, "Hey, I did this fundraiser years ago, and maybe we could do it for Restoration House."
Yeah.
Perfect. She knew exactly how to make that happen, and she ran with it. And
Yeah.
I just gave her the thumbs up and the support and the resources to do it, but she ran it. So when
Yeah.
you're getting getting going, when you're getting started, or you're an organization that is wanting to grow, wait until you find those right people to do it. It'll be so
Yeah.
much easier.
For sure. And so, and then this final question here is just, how do you maintain sustainable income year after year? Based on our conversation here today, is that you have to always just be having communication with new friends. Like, we've got to continue to invite people to be a part of our organization, but that sustainable income, like when Tim made the comment about the monthly donations, like, yes, monthly donations are fantastic. And that does create sustainability, year after year. But the thing is that asking for monthly donations is actually one of the hardest asks to make, because once somebody starts giving to you monthly, that's like, hey, we believe in you. So the monthly donation should be something that, hey, they came to a smaller event, they came to a gathering, they came to something. Maybe they made their first donation, a $50 donation, a $100 donation, and then you move them into those monthly donations. You move them into the annual donations of being a part of your year-end campaign. So the thing is about sustainable income is that you're always allowing other people to come in and to join what it is that you're doing. So you're just naturally investing in people and inviting them in. So one thing to think about is that I have, like, me as an individual, I have my own circle of influence, right? Like, I have the people that I've built relationships with over, the last 40 plus years of my life. Tim, same thing. Tim has his circle of influence that he's built over the last 40 plus years of his life, right? And so Erin, same thing. She has hers. And the thing is and she's younger than us. But with all of this, we will never run out of contacts.
Yeah.
You should never, because look I have mine, Tim has his, and then
Mm-hmm.
just start multiplying the people, the volunteers, the staff, the donors. You have contacts with all of their contacts.
Yeah.
So you will never, ever tap into every resource you could possibly tap into, because you're inviting people in and you're going after the A plus, the top 10% of all of their contacts that are connected to you. So I hope that
Well,
that
and
makes sense to you guys.
you should, let's just say right now, like, you're feeling like frustrated, like, I can't think of anybody, I could go talk to, and maybe you only think of one. So think about that one person you're talking to. Your goal should be, out of that meeting with that person, if they give to your organization, great, because they're probably going to recommend or refer you to somebody else. And you ask them to say, hey, thank you so much for giving to our organization. Do you know anybody else who might be passionate about giving to our organization as well? That's one. But let's say that they say no. They say, you know what, this is not the right time for me, or whatever. Or, you know what, I'm not super passionate about this area, or as passionate about it as you are. And you say, hey, you know what, thank you so much for just being honest with me and being direct. But then ask them the same thing. Do you know anybody else who might be in the position to be able to hear what we're doing, and how they can have an impact? So whether they say yes or no, your goal should be get another meeting from somebody else based on who that person knows. So you're tapping into their network.
Yeah.
And if you do that on a consistent basis, every time you meet with somebody, you will literally never run out of contacts.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. Well, hey guys, I know that if you have to jump off, we totally understand. Tim and I just wanted to share a little bit about how you guys could get plugged in with us. There's been some great questions coming in, like, hey, can you and Tim just raise money for us? No. I mean, that would be the best, right? I'll just come raise money for you. But the truth is that Tim and I really wanted to create a program that was where we could walk alongside startup nonprofits and we could walk alongside growing
Yeah.
nonprofits. So we created the Nonprofit Academy this last year. We had a group already come through our start group. Some of our students are actually here on the call today, and so basically, we have two tracks that we invite people to join in on. It's either our start group or our grow group. And today, like we are not selling anything. I just want to be really clear that we are not selling anything today. We are actually inviting you guys to consider applying for our next session. So we are opening up our start group and our grow group to start in June. So we are inviting you guys to consider partnering with us, consider joining in on one of these groups so that you are not alone as you move through your nonprofit startup phase or your nonprofit growth phase.
Yeah.
So real quick, the nonprofit start group, what is it? For Nonprofit Academy, the start group is for someone who is just starting a nonprofit, whether you already have your 501c3 or you have not gotten it yet, but you have an idea and you feel like this is the direction that you are meant to go. It's for someone who needs a coach. Like, hey, if you are going to take on any athletic, anything, you need a coach. You need
Yeah.
somebody who's been in the place that you're in. Tim is 10 years ahead of those of you who are just starting. Some of you guys, you're looking for someone even further. I'll tell you more about that in a second. And you also, want access to a community of other startup nonprofits to remind you that you are not alone. And that is probably my favorite part about our start
Yeah,
group.
for
The
sure.
current session that we're in, shout out to you guys. I adore every single one of our students. We are very, very picky. Okay. I just want to
Mhm.
make it clear that it's like, it's not just about, hey, who do we want to coach? It's about who do we want who do we want you to learn from and be
Yeah.
in community with? So it's really important that we position you in with other people who are also going to move at the same pace and they're not going to drag you down. So I love that. And then the grow group real quick. The grow group is for someone who's growing an established nonprofit organization, someone who needs coaching to take their organization to the next level, and someone who wants access to a community of nonprofit leaders who are growing their organization and that you want to learn and grow. You want to learn and grow with them through the process. So that's really in its simplest format of what Start and Grow is all about. Tim is our chief startup coach. Like he is
Mm.
our go-to resource on anything regarding like strategic planning, getting your 501c3 set up, thinking through, what do we not know that we should know, because
Yeah.
when
How
you
do you
do
build a team? Yeah.
yeah, how do you build a team? How do you start with, maybe expanding your staff, expanding that
Hmm.
volunteer base, your board development,
Yeah.
all those sorts of things. To my right, or, on the screen here is James Harrington. James is one of our chief coaches. He also started up his nonprofit, the Ugandan Water Project. And James has built a $2.5 million nonprofit from the ground up, started off as a little project from his church and has now expanded into its own 501c3, full staff, full development team. And he is our chief coach on the mission side for our Grow group. And I am your fundraising coach. And so I'm here to support both the startup nonprofits and the ones that are growing, to give you strategy, to give you, ideas as you start to raise funds and move forward. So that's
Yeah.
really it in a nutshell. And right now, like we said, we are just asking you to apply. So it's 10 questions. Okay. Like literally 10 questions that we're asking you about your nonprofit. The next step would be Erin will get your applications in and she will get you set up with a 20-minute conversation with either Tim or myself.
Yeah.
And all we're going to do is just give you what you need next. If the start group, if the grow group are that next thing, great. But it may be that Tim's going to be like, buddy, this is what I would do if I were you. Or I would say, here's how you get those first dollars in and then come find us, right?
Yeah.
Because some of you are like, I don't have a penny. Like we don't have nothing. take us up on the offer of doing this call and to at least apply. We do also, a question that came in was about like, do we do some coaching on larger campaigns? That is something that I do as well. So that's something that we can talk about during that discovery call. Whether or not, hey, maybe it's best that we just go on a one-on-one basis. Tim does the same thing. So
Yep.
we both offer one-on-one coaching for that. And we do want to take your questions here. So we're going to address those before we wrap today. But I want to make sure that you guys have an opportunity to get plugged into a community. Uh, for me, my heartbeat is around making sure that you are not doing this alone. You are
Mhm.
not a lone ranger. You do not need to, tackle this thing by yourself. There are so many strategies. There are so many things that Tim and I have in our toolbox of resources. Tim, you and I have budgets, timelines, case documents, like strategic planning samples. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
the templates and resources that we have
Job
available,
descriptions.
job
Yeah. Every
descriptions for
volunteer
board
descriptions.
members.
Yeah. Board members. Yeah.
Exactly.
All of it. Yeah.
So you do not have to invent the wheel on any of this stuff. That's what's so great. And then on top of it, you have this community. So, some of our students, it's like, well, hey, you're in the same spot as this person. And they're having conversations to say, well, what are you doing? What are you doing? And it's just nice to know that you are not alone, that you always have a resource available to you when the tough things pop up, because they will. So
Well, and we're going to be moving forward. We're starting this year, but we're going to be doing some workshops moving forward too, right? So we're
absolutely.
going to literally be getting together face to face with our groups and our students, and we're going to be working one on one with you, you know, in person. So
Yeah.
super
I,
exciting.
one thing that I love that we can all meet together by Zoom. This is absolutely fantastic. I'm not going to dog it at all because it is the only reason why I've been able to do the business work that I've done the last several years. But there is something, and I don't know, studies are showing that it's just not the same when you're not physically in the same space with
Yeah.
people. And so I'm excited to bring that component back and make sure that we can, get into those workshop environments. And Tim and I are big on action. So
Yeah.
it's all about, like, we want to see progress. We want to see things done. So earlier in today's training, I gave you a sample of, Tim's case document, told you about the menu, all that. That piece right there is one of those things that I think is really daunting for people to do on their own. So that's something that I do work with people to walk them through, helping them build out that case document, and then also
Mhm.
building out a volunteer team. A lot of people struggle with, well, who do I ask? And what should I ask of them? What do my meetings look like? And so there's just like all these questions that start popping
How do
up.
you
And I'm like,
fire a volunteer?
exactly. Or you're a founder, and how do I let the baby go fly? Like, go, become what it's supposed to be when you feel like it's yours and you've got to start letting go. So there's
Yeah.
lots of things that come along with that. So, all right. On that note, if you guys have any questions, we're going to take just the last 10 minutes here and answer some questions. Make sure if you have questions about Start and Grow, you can ask those, but we'll address some of the questions that came in earlier. So let's see, Aaron's been messaging us. So where do we find, oh, let's see if I even went to the original one here. Where do we find the right individuals to build relationships with? Eric,
Mm. Yeah.
where do we find the right individuals? I feel like this is a dating question. Like, how do I find my spouse? Like, it's like, well, Tim,
I would say,
what do you say?
where do you spend the most of your time? That's the simplest way to answer that. So, for me, for somebody like me, I'm a, very spiritual person. I, grew up in the church. And so the easiest place for me to start was spending time where I was spending all my time, and that was people within the church. So you got to know, like, just sit down and think, all right, where am I spending all my time? You might be like highly involved in like softball leagues. You every night you go to play in a different softball league or a volleyball league. Where are you spending the majority of your time? Because the reason why that's important is because if you're spending the majority of your time with other people in a certain area, you already have a connection point with them. They're passionate about that thing that you're spending your time doing. If you go to the gym, every day, you inevitably have probably been meeting people. So start there. The simplest thing I would say is just, think about where you're spending the majority of your time and then start there.
So, and then what I would address on that is just the fact that you probably have had some people that have leaned into your organization. Like they said, oh, wow, I didn't realize that you were doing that. Oh my goodness, you're making such a, an impact. That's great. And you can just kind of feel them leaning into the conversation. And that's when I would start to say like, hey, let's grab a coffee. Let's get together. Let's talk about how you can get more involved, or I can, would love to share more about what's going on. But eventually you get those initial donations. So some of you already have a database of donations that have already started to come in. I would start looking through that database and I'd start looking at who are the people who are doing what I want others to do. Are they giving? Are they, showing up at things? Are they leaning in on conversations? And I would ask them for their advice. This is one of my, if you've been a student of mine, I'm like, I preach it, but ask for advice and you'll get money.
Money.
Ask for money
and
you'll get a whole heck of a lot of advice. so I want you to ask for advice. Ask for advice. Hey, if you were in my shoes, how would you try and find new people? I mean, ask somebody that question, right? To be like, I don't even know who I should reach out to. So that question that you just asked in here, I would be looking at my list and be like, hey, who could I sit down with coffee with and just say, I need your help. Like, would you mind grabbing some coffee with me and would you come brainstorm with me about ways that we can get more people engaged in what we're doing in our organization? And the two of you, the mission is brainstorming. Like, you're going to give me your advice. I'm sorry, I don't know who's not going to take you up on that, because especially if they're hardwired like me, I love that, just, I can help you brainstorm and we can come up with ideas. And not that we have to have the answer to everything, but it's going to at least start to like, what can we do first? What's the first thing we could do? Is it a coffee meetup? Is it, hey, let's bring a couple people over to your house and let's have coffee and desserts and just tell them about what we're doing. And we'll just invite our friends. Okay, that sounds great, right? So it's just, I would start with the inner circle that you already have, the people who've already started to give, who've shown some interest. And then I would start to say, hey, let's go grab coffee with a couple of them or a Zoom call with them. And then we're going to move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
So I hope that that's helpful. Okay. All right. And Erin, feel free to unmute yourself and tell us where I should be looking here. Let's see. There we go.
Hello.
Hi. Hi, Erin.
Hi. Willie asked, is constant contact a viable source for fundraising?
So go ahead, Tim.
Yep. It's marketing 101, you got to have those touch points. So yeah, you need regular, consistent, contact with people. Whether that's through like, a letter, like a handwritten letter or an email or a face-to-face or a phone call. With anyone who is a donor, you want to have like pretty regular contact. I do think there's a such thing as too much contact. You don't want to like over saturate them, especially if they're very busy people. But and what's the rule in marketing? Take 7 touch points before somebody will become. Will you? So I've heard this before. It's 7 touch points before they'll decide. I think it's more like 7 touch points before they begin to make a consideration of like whether they're going to, get involved with what you're doing.
Sure. And I believe that Willie's asking about the program Constant Contact here,
okay.
Which is okay. But Constant Contact, you also, yes, you need Constant Contact. But the program Constant Contact, I mean, it's a good resource, but it's just like all the other, programs that are tracking your information. Yeah. So it's, that donor database, it's good. All of them are good, but you're only as good as the information that you use. So any sort of email list, like a MailChimp or if you have your database program, Kindful, Bloomerang, Salesforce, any of those, Blackbaud, Razor's Edge. I mean, there's so many of them. There's not a right or wrong answer to, hey, what's the best program or what should I be using? But they all are good tools. in your fundraising work. So it's always nice to have the information readily available, but don't overthink it. And you can use something as simple as MailChimp to send out your emails. What I will say is, if you are sending emails by CCing, BCing, or putting them in the to place, and you're sending to more than one person, please stop. Okay. Like that is, it's illegal. It's unethical. Do not dump your mailing list into your hey, and send it to everybody. Like, this is where you have to be professional. We have to get a program where you're going to send out emails, to where somebody can unsubscribe. Because if I start getting your emails for your charity and you have no way for me to unsubscribe, how do I get an email to stop? If Tim is emailing me constantly, how do I get Tim to stop me from stop him from emailing? I'd have to email Tim and be like, Tim, stop sending me information about your organization. And that is rude. And people don't want to do that. And then it feels hurtful. Okay. So just let them opt in, let them opt out.
Some people will do it too. And then it does. I mean, it stings, it's like, if you take it, you take it personally.
Exactly. It's not you. They just feel like you're bombarding them. So,
yeah.
All right. We have time for one or two more questions here. Aaron.
Them come through from Rory. I saw Rory.
Oh yeah, we just asked his question earlier. His was the funding the individuals. And then I do see Francine asking about the cost of the program. Francine, this is one of those things where we I just we never want money to be the reason why you don't move forward. You guys know that money didn't stop you from starting your organization. Many of you, $5, it's all you got. Okay. So that's something that Tim and I are really passionate about, is that it's like, we don't want finances to be the reason why you don't move forward. I would rather be like, hey, you're not a good fit. Like, if you're a good fit, Tim and I are going to do what we can to make sure that you have the steps, or you have, like, if this isn't the right session, we'll get you in on the next session, whatever that looks like. So take the time, just apply, just take the leap of faith, put it out there. And we'll have a conversation with you and tell you some financial, numbers there, but don't let that stop you. So that's why we don't announce it here, because it's a non-issue at this point. And we just want to move forward with getting to know you, getting to know your organization. And for some of you, you might be doing those larger campaigns. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about what that looks like, and we can go from there. So great. Okay. All right. On that note, I think we grabbed everything. So thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you for staying the whole time. To the people who are still on the call, thank you so much. We are recording this training, so you guys will get access to it. We'll be sending it out here within the next 24 hours. So you're welcome to take it, share it, send it to other people. If there's somebody that's in your list that you want, maybe somebody from your board or somebody who's involved in your organization to be on that conversation with us, or to give you the go ahead to apply, be sure to do that. So yeah, thank you for all the kind comments. Appreciate that. So as you know, Tim and I are a resource for you. Jump on the podcast, listen to those episodes, get to know Tim and I. And if you're like, hey, I kind of like these crazy people, maybe I should talk with them further, then let's do that. So, all right, we will keep you posted on the next trainings that we do and other things that we have going on through email. So just keep an eye out in your inbox for any updates in that format. So any last words, Tim?
Yeah, just hop onto that podcast. I think that's one of the coolest things that we have. Certainly one of the coolest free things that we have for anybody and everybody. We love doing it. So share it to people who are maybe in that same boat as you. I know all those other nonprofit entrepreneurs and founders. We all stay in the same circle, so we'd love for you to share it, and as well as this webinar.
Yeah. And we just had a question come in about where to find the podcast, and we are on every podcast app that's out there. So, or you can just jump on startandgrowyournonprofit.com/podcast, and they're all there as well. So thank you guys. Thanks, Paul, for the kind words too. And look forward to connecting with you guys on some discovery calls coming up. So, all right. Holler at us if you need us. Otherwise, we will see you guys soon.
Thank you guys. Bye.
Bye. See ya.